now the good news of the gospel for us in this fourth Sunday of Lent is the gospel according to St. Luke, the 15th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
You may be seated. And now, all the tax collectors and sinners were coming near to listen to Jesus. And the Pharisees and the scribes were grumbling and saying, "This fella welcomes sinners and eats with them." Then Jesus told them this parable. There was a man who had 2 sons. And the younger of them said to his father, "Give me the share the share of the property that will belong to me." So the father divided his property among them. And a few days later, the younger son gathered what he had and traveled to a distant country where he squandered his property in dissolute living. And when he had spent everything, a great famine took place throughout that country. And he began to be in need. So what he did, he went and hired himself to one of the citizens of the country that asked him to go to his field to feed his pigs. Now he would be gladly fill himself with the parts that the pigs are eating. And no one gave him anything. So now when he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired hands have food enough and even to spare, while here I am dying of hunger? I have an idea. I'm going to get up and go, and I will tell my father, 'Father, I've sinned against heaven and before you, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Just treat me as one of your hired hands.' So he set off and went to his father. And while he was still far off, and his father saw him, and he was filled with compassion, and he ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. And the son said to the father, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son.' And before he continues to do what he rehearsed, and father said to his slaves, 'Quickly, get out a robe, the best one, and put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. And go and get the calf and kill it, and let's eat and rejoice. For this, my son was dead and is alive again. and was lost and is found. Then they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, now the elder son was in the field. And when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of his servants and asked, "What's going on?" And he said, "Your brother has come. And your father has killed a fatted calf. For he has gotten him safe and sound." He became angry and he refused to go in. Now the father came out and began to plead with him. But he answered his father, "Listen, for all these years I have been working like a slave for you. And I've never disobeyed your command. And yet you've never given me even a young goat that I may celebrate with my friends. But when the son of yours," he didn't say my brother, "the son of yours came home, who devoured your property with the prostitutes, and you killed him, the fatted calf." And the father said to him, "Son, you're always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But we have to celebrate and rejoice, because this, your brother, or the brother of yours, was dead and is alive again, and was lost and now is found." This is the gospel of our Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
May we pray. And Lord, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Grace and peace to you, my brothers and sisters in Christ. The parable of the prodigal son in our gospel today is one of the most popular parables in the gospel in the Bible that describes God's amazing grace. My Sunday school class just finished a series of the study of this very same topic, discovering God's amazing grace. And I think one of the reasons why this parable is so popular is because we can easily put ourselves in that story as one of the characters, or perhaps two or three, all those characters. And this parable is somewhat a rendition of a common story in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, the story of a father and the two sons, and the rivalries in between them, such as the story of Adam and his two sons, Cain and Abel, and the rivalry in between them regarding the offerings. God received Abel's offering but rejected Cain's. Cain ended up murdering his younger brother Abel. And another father and the two sons story will be the story of Esau and Jacob, where Isaac, the father, loved Jacob more than Esau. As we know, Esau traded his birthrights for pieces of bread and a bowl of stew. Then Jacob later on stole Esau's birthright that caused a great anger from his elder brother to the point to kill him. That forced Jacob to flee to Haran to his uncle's house, Laban. And Jesus uses this familiar father and the two sons story to bring about his point of God's grace to the Pharisees and the scribes who are grumbling because Jesus welcomes their own siblings, the tax collectors and sinners, in a form of a parable, the prodigal son. And the parable describes three distinct characters. The first, the younger son, who does this unthinkable and most humiliating action of a person could ever commit in such culture. He asks for his inheritance from his father while he's still alive. It is not a way of saying, Father, I wish you were dead. And for some reasons, the father grants his son's bizarre request. Something problem with the father too. No father would do such thing again in the culture. Then he travels to a distant country. A distant is kind of a technical term. He literally distances himself from his family, his father and brother, his country, and even his own faith by going to this Gentile territory. And not only that, he squanders his property in dissolute living, partying and living as if there is no tomorrow. The elder brother described that he spent his money with the prostitutes. And as you may expect, his money was gone in no time, and so were his friends. And to make matter worse, a severe famine took place throughout that country. Then he began to be in need. He's so desperate that he hired himself to one of the citizens to take care of the pigs. Pig was considered a defiled and dirty animal for the Jews, but because he was so desperate that he would be glad to eat the same food as the pigs are eating. In other words, he has become like one of them. Now he lost everything, his identity and his dignity is the lowest point of someone can have. That's how to describe the worst sin that you ever can commit. Then as the parable goes, he hits the rock bottom, and it becomes a turning point in his life. The word that he used in this parable, he came to himself and realized that he's messed up big time. Then he makes an honest assessment about his situations, saying, how many of my father's hired hands had bread enough to spare, or I'm here dying of hunger. Then he comes up with a plan that he rehearsed, saying, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get up and go and I'll tell my father, Father, that I've sinned against heaven and before you, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Just treat me as one of your hired hand. Oftentimes, when people hit the rock bottom in their lives, it becomes a turning point for changing their lives for good, changing the directions of their life. It's like the same thing as the meaning of repentance. And some don't, unfortunately. But here in this parable, this lost son does not ask for more. He doesn't ask him that he will be treated as a son, just be of the higher hands. Now we come to the second, the character of the father. The father who is not a typical father in the culture. And first of all, it seems like the father has been waiting for so long for the return of his son the day his son left. And while sitting in the terrace of his house waiting for the return of his son, perhaps he reminisces the time when he taught his son how to walk on the same road that he was staring at. That's why when his son comes, he already recognizes him even from far away. And when he sees him, he is filled with